Well, ladies and gentlemen, we officially can get back to football. Stop worrying about a CBA agreement with the United Football League and the United Football Players Association because ESPN is reporting that a new deal has been ratified with the UFL and the UFPA, ending nearly 6 months of negotiations, according to union officials. This is absolutely amazing. This is great for the league, and it is good news as we head into week 4. Now, of course, the deal, which is pending final approval from the UFL, is retroactive to the start of training camp, which opened March 2nd and will extend through the end of 2026 season. This, again, coming on the heels of a 6-month-long negotiation. We know that there were some issues prior to the start of the season and training camp where quarterbacks collectively came together, signed a deal that they were not showing up to camp. There's been even some words out there from fans and stuff like that thinking that potentially that players were quiet quitting, and that's why the play has been so bad. I think that's absolutely crazy, but I wanted to address that because it has been making its way around, and I've heard that from like numerous people. I've seen it in some of the comments here on the channel as well. It's just an idiotic thing to even think. I couldn't imagine someone putting their bodies on the line and quiet quitting when they're some of them are trying to get in the NFL, to get tape, just to screw it up, to screw over the league. That really makes no sense to me. But hey, the internet will say crazy things, that's for sure. Let's go ahead and dive into this article from Kevin Seifert at ESPN. The new CBA includes an annual raise of $7,005 on players' minimum salary from $55,000 to $62,005 for players who participate in all 10 regular season games, and makes all players eligible for year-round health care, according to a fact sheet produced by the UFPA. The minimum salary for 2026 will be $64,000. And what's nice about this, too, is this new CBA collective bargaining agreement increases minimum salary and roster size, which that's another key point to this whole scenario, because I think this is where we could get into the factor of expansion, potentially with expanding rosters. But let's go on and we'll get through all the points here. Someone was stating, I think this is a reflection of the fact that the UFL and UFPA ultimately wanted to come together to reach a sustainable deal that will ensure that spring football will be here to stay, said Harry Moreno, president of sports and the UFPA's lead negotiator for the CBA. And as hard fought as the negotiation was, I think this is turning the page and saying, okay, we're going to work in partnership to make sure this thing lasts and succeeds. The UFL did not immediately comment on the agreement. Labor certainly should be led to more continually among the player pool. Michigan Panthers quarterback Danny Edeling said UFLPA, let me see here. The article's weird, so I'll go back to the actual breakdown because they have it broken down weird in this article, which will be in the comments or in the description. So it's good not only for the league investors, but just for the league in general to give in some stability, Edling said. So then we're not in a negotiation next year trying to do the same thing, having this go into the season, but also just for the players having the ability to have some consistency there. For players planning with their families and trying to get guys to return for multiple seasons, which that's a key factor. Having players return for multiple seasons is going to build that fandom up, and we've seen that. I mean, spring football has seen that in many years where a lot of players come back. Look at the Birmingham Stallions. Arlington Renegades are another key piece to that you start seeing more and more people shining. So the UFL CBA highlights. So among the structure changes in the new UFL CBA, the annual raise of $7,005 on players' minimum salary makes all players eligible for year-round health care. Team roster size increased from 42 players to 43 during the regular season and 58 to 64 during training camp, which is great news because that'll help get more opportunities and maybe better players in the long run that they're able to evaluate. Player bonuses of $500 for Player of the Week awards, $5,000 for Players of the Year, $7,500 for League MVP, and $5,000 for players that win the championship game. Those are great incentives, and those are incentives we kind of saw, I think, right after the USFL started. With once they had a player union, those type of things were in play. The XFL, quite sure had it. I'm not 100% remembering. I know the XFL in 2020 did, sort of things like that. So that incentive for playing better is going to help out significantly. Process for player grievances, maximum of 2 padded practices per week. Agreement that players can wear preferred cleats, and creation of labor management committee that will meet 3 times per year. Players, it goes on to say, players began voicing concerns about the direction of the talks before training camp when 24 quarterbacks signed a letter that expressed their disappointment and announced that they would skip a league-organized quarterback camp in February. Some players felt threatened during the first week of training camp when coaches informed them that they could be released if they followed through on discussions to boycott the league's media days. 3 players confirmed to ESPN in March, which is such a weird thing that ESPN or players confirmed to ESPN when ESPN and Disney are a co-owner of this league. It's super weird how this breaks down. The league clarified there would be discipline, but no job loss if a boycott occurred, and all requested players made appearances. But former Memphis Showboats quarterback Quentin Dormady was released a day later, and he told ESPN that he believed his leadership role in the union was a driving factor. In response to the league, said in part that any player transactions are purely the result of football decisions at the team level and have nothing to do with collective bargaining negotiations. The UFPA filed an unfair labor practices complaint with the National Labor Relations Board, but that is likely to be withdrawn now. The sides remained in contact throughout, and ultimately the league agreed both to the salary hike and the health care formula that gives players 7 months of insurance, followed by subsidized COBRA for the other 5 months. In 2024, players were insured only during 4-month UFL season. One benefit of the healthcare agreement, players told ESPN, is opening a path for players who were no longer eligible to remain on their parents' insurance after the age of 26. Guys have started to realize sometimes it takes maybe a year, 2 years, or 3 years in spring football to hopefully get back to the NFL, said St. Louis Battlehawks punter Sterling, I believe it's Hofritcher, who is 28. So just having that ability to have year-round health care for people, the extra wages, I think really does help bridge the gap that people were having before. And to be honest with you, I never understood, and I've talked about it in that being negative towards the league and stuff like that video that I made last week, that I never understood the concept of like fans or people in the media complaining about players' rights and safety and healthcare agreements and pay, stuff that has literally nothing to do with them. You don't get to be a fan and also complain that, oh, well, they don't deserve this, where you look at Danny Edeling, who Michigan Panthers quarterback, who good night people complained about so much, got hurt and was placed, I believe, on the IR. Again, those are things that like they need coverage for. It's none of your business. Like as a fan, no one talks about this type of stuff with the NFL or NBA or MLB. I mean, yes, there's negotiations that go through with CBAs and all that type of stuff, but in reality, like, as a fan, just support the league. If you support the league and go to games and buy merchandise and watch it on TV, that's how you can help the league, which is going to then allow these CBAs to go in and get better football, get better players in there, and be able to really continue with spring football. That's what we're all here for. And I do appreciate that they have somewhat come together and made an agreement. I can't wait for the UFL to sign off of this. Hopefully they do that today before kickoff night, but we have known that it has been a long process for players and the United Football Players Association that essentially did this to get us to where we're at today. So kudos on all parties in this, and we are finally here to say spring football is here to stay. So we'll see you later today for my picks. I did not get them up yesterday, but we will be back and do that here soon. So I'll see you on the flip side. Have a great one, everyone.